Hi everybody, welcome back for another instalment of Teach Me in 10, the video series that is brought to you by LabTube. Here at Teach Me in 10, we invite scientists to talk to us about a scientific research area or a scientific concept in less than 10 minutes. We want to make science more accessible for you. My name is Molly and I'm a science writer for Technology Networks. This week at Teach Me in 10, we wanted to cover a topic that a lot of people are asking questions about, and that's side effects of COVID-19 vaccination. So 1 in 10 individuals will experience side effects from COVID-19 vaccines, and we want to know why. So to help us answer these questions, we have Professor Martin Michaelis and Dr. Mark Wass from the University of Kent joining us for a Teach Me in 10 instalment.
So we think there are two main reasons why vaccines cause side effects. One is actually the response of the immune system, and that is what we want. And the other one is that many people will know but may not have in mind when it comes to side effects or adverse events, and that is the placebo effect, because that can have positive but also negative consequences. And yeah, I will talk a bit about the immune part of it, and then Mark will take over and talk about placebo. So the very simple answer why many vaccines, and in particular also the COVID-19 vaccine, causes side effects is because it activates the immune system. And what we feel is actually the immune system starting to respond. It's important to say that none of the COVID-19 vaccines can actually cause COVID-19 because they do not contain the virus. They just present parts of the virus to our immune system. And then the immune system recognizes that there is something that there shouldn't be, and starts an immune response. Now, this, because that is caused by the immune system in the more or less the same way as it is by the vaccine, this feels very similar to the disease. And the first steps of the immune response is the so-called innate immune response. It is an unspecific immune response that starts when the immune system recognizes something that shouldn't be there. This is also why it is very difficult to differentiate between different infectious diseases, because these are programs that just run. And that is why it is impossible to differentiate between different infectious diseases just based on the symptoms, because many different diseases cause exactly the same symptoms. And this is why it is impossible to differentiate between COVID-19 and other infectious respiratory diseases without a test. Yeah, you never know 100% without a test. And many of the symptoms are because of that very generic. For example, you may develop a fever, and that is at higher temperatures. Most or many pathogens can't replicate or reproduce that well. So that's a broad spectrum immune response that interferes with many different pathogens. In our case, if we had just had the vaccine, it's completely unnecessary because there is no pathogen that would cause any problems. But still, the response basically is the same. Another one is vomiting. Yeah, if you become injected a vaccine, there's no point in vomiting. But often these diseases are caused by pathogens that we have just swallowed, and now your organism wants to get rid of these things. So we have all these unspecific symptoms. Now, unspecific also means this is not what gives us a long-term protection. Yeah. So although this is inconvenient, this in itself can protect us in a real infection, but not really with a vaccine. But it is necessary then to activate the acquired, what we call the acquired immune response, the long-term response. And that is caused then by so-called B cells that produce antibodies that specifically recognize a certain pathogen, for example, the SARS coronavirus 2 that causes COVID-19, and T cells that specifically recognize these viruses or the infected cells and then destroy these cells. There are differences between males and females. Females have a higher risk of developing side effects. That also indicates probably a stronger immune response. And that we see that because females have a better outcome. There are a number of reasons for that. One are actually the X chromosomes. As most people will know, females have 2 X chromosomes, males only 1. Now, many of the immune genes are actually located on the X chromosome. So if you have 2, you have a stronger immune response. And also hormonal reasons. So if you have a lot of testosterone, it's not as good. If you have more estrogen, it's also better. The downside of that is that women are better protected from infectious diseases than men. It's not that massive, but on average, a little bit. But they're also more victims or suffering from autoimmune diseases. And with this, I think I hand over to Mark and to the placebo effect.
Thank you, Martin. So many people will have heard of the placebo effect. And if we think of a clinical trial where a drug or a treatment is being tested, you typically have those in the trial that receive the drug and those that receive a placebo. So they receive maybe a pill, but the pill does not have the drug in it. And we often hear about how people respond well on the placebo arm of a trial. So they have this effect where they see an improvement in their symptoms, but they haven't actually received the drug. What we also observe is the opposite of that in this placebo arm. So we see people who haven't received a drug, but they also observe the side effects. So if we think about in vaccination trials, for example, there will have been people who received an injection, but they didn't get the vaccination. And some of those people will have observed the side effects. And clearly this is a psychological effect that occurs. And so that's why in these current vaccination programs against COVID-19 or SARS coronavirus 2, there will be people who are vaccinated, and just because they know that they have been vaccinated, that psychologically prompts them to experience some of the side effects that we know can occur when you receive a vaccination. And so together, these are the 2 main things reasons why people see side effects when they have a vaccination. So Martin's talked about the activation of our immune system. So that's the good thing that we want to be happening when we receive a vaccination. And then this nocebo effect is what we call it, when people have the side effects for psychological reasons.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but the nocebo effect in vaccination is not necessarily something that I had thought of before. So big thanks to Martin and Mark for joining us for this week's instalment of Teach Me in 10 and providing some really helpful insight as to why certain people may experience side effects from vaccination. We'll be back next week for another instalment of Teach Me in 10, but if you guys can't wait until then, be sure to check out the Teach Me in 10 hub page where you can access all the videos that we've published so far. See you next week.